Guitar video. I'm going to try and simplify some modal type stuff. Try and explain it in the simplest way I can. Because modes get the kind of a raw deal of seeming very, or at least I used to think so. When I would get old guitar player magazines when I was a kid, you know, and I'd flip through them, they always had something there about modes and stuff, and it just seemed so foreign to me. I just didn't know that kind of shit back when I was a teenager and stuff. I got older, I kind of dug more into theory and stuff and learned more about it. Just kind of taught myself, you know, and having the internet is a big deal. Nothing seems more boring learning music than trying to learn it out of a book. It's boring as shit. When you got somebody on the internet showing you a video or at least explaining to you in a way that you can understand through a website of some kind. But anyway, as far as modes, that's part of the reason why I like to make these videos, because it seems to simplify things. I like to try and explain this to people who think it's too complicated when it's really not. Whenever you learn the basics of theory, then you can get into this fairly simply, fairly easily. So, first thing I want to say is if you're going to think you're not playing in modes, you probably already are. If you know anything in a minor key, you're playing in a mode. You're playing in a mode of the major scale whenever you play anything using a relative minor key. You know, using a minor pentatonic even, you're playing in a mode in a way. You know, using the natural minor scale, you're playing the aeolian mode of the major scale. So you're already in the realm of playing modal type stuff and might not even realize it. Okay? But that's just a sixth mode. You play something in a major key, you're playing in the first mode. So you're playing 1 and 6, but there's 7 in total. And the other 5 aren't as popular, but they are used and they can be fun to fart around with, you know. And I'll show you how you can kind of get into this. So, when you learn to fart around with something in a different mode, you got to realize that you're in a key. You're going to be in a key, and you're going to use that key to decipher what you need to know in order to play a chord progression that'll sound good with a modal type of playing, that'll make it sound very modal by certain chords lined up. And the scale, you're going to be playing in that. You're going to be thinking in terms of chords of that scale and notes of that scale and the positions and the intervals of that particular scale you're in order to figure out the chords, figure out the notes you're going to play over those chords and all this stuff. So you got to know something about the major scale and all this stuff in order to know at least what key you're in and what notes are in that key and what chords you're going to build out of those notes. So that's one thing you got to know before you can even go any further. If you don't know that, there's no sense even watching the video here. You know, you got to kind of know that. It's all going to be gibberish without that. So, I'm going to talk about it here in the key of E major. And if you want to play something that's in a mode, say like the Lydian mode, which is the 4th mode. It's a major mode. It's going to be based around a major chord. The 4th chord of E major, like I said, we're in a key. We're in the key of E major. We're going to think of the 4th chord, which is A major. You take that chord, and then you build a chord progression around it using the simplified ways that a lot of songs are written. You know, chords like to move in seconds, fourths, or fifths. So if you want to try and figure out the next chord that might come next after this A major, in order to make a little modal sounding thing, you could just move like in a 4th. But you count that 4th using the E major scale. You don't count that 4th using A major. Because the song is in E major. You always got to keep that in mind, that you're in a key. So we're going to count up from A. We're going to count up to the B, D flat, E flat. Okay? That's going up 4 in the key of E major. 4 from A. And you basically get an E flat minor 7 flat 5 or E flat diminished is what you're going to get. So you could kind of do, you know, a lot of songs are done with 1 and 4s, just kind of go back and forth, you know. You see that all the time. So you might have just A major, E flat, diminished. Now you'll take that little progression right there and just play the E major scale over that, and it just kind of forces you to have to playing something in a Lydian kind of feel. You know, it just does. The progression sounds weird, and then whenever you start putting a few notes in there, anyway, you get that weird Lydian sound, that major with a sharp fourth. It's just a little off-putting, a little different from the major scale. So, and you could stretch that progression farther. That's just 2 chords. You could stretch it farther. You could make it an A, and then you could go to that E flat, and then you could move a second from that E flat. You could go a second higher or a second lower. You could go higher or you could go lower. Either way. You could go higher one time around or lower the next time around. So you might go lower. And go higher. So you get that Lydian feel, and that's just a simple way to get into a Lydian mode and kind of hear the modal qualities of something like that, you know. And you know, that's the Lydian. You could drop it down a half step here and go into Phrygian, or you could drop it down 2 and go into Dorian here, and kind of focus around on F sharp. But you know, I'll take before I even go into that, think about this. You've got pentatonics you could fart around with too now. So if I did that same chord progression, but instead of playing the E major 7-note scale, major scale, I'm going to focus on the chord that I'm kind of trying to revolve this around. I'm trying to revolve it around the Lydian sound, which is this A major. So I'm going to play the A major pentatonic over this chord progression. And it's still going to give you a bit of a Lydian feel because of the chords that you're playing this A major pentatonic over, but it changes it in a weird way, and it makes it a little easier. You know, people usually learn these pentatonic shapes, the major, minor pentatonic shapes first, so it simplifies the scale a little bit. And it's a lot of your licks that you would use in all of your favorite songs that are based on pentatonic scales and all this stuff, you tend to be able to use them even on weird stuff like this. So you can use the pentatonic, that A major pentatonic, to play over that kind of progression too. And it kind of gives you a way of knowing how you can use these pentatonics in ways other than playing over your average, you know, classic rock song or some shit like that, you know. Instead of playing some Leonard Skinner or I don't know, anything, any of your run-of-the-mill pentatonic sounding rock or blues or country or whatever. And kind of takes you into the jazz realm, to be honest with you. To be able to play pentatonics over minor 7 flat 5 chords, it takes you on to another level. It really does. So if you take it to the Phrygian, we could do the same thing now, except we're going to use this A flat minor, the 3rd chord of E major, and we'll do the same kind of progression. So we'll go do off this, and we'll count up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you get this D flat minor. Now I could go up a half a step here and get that E flat minor 7 flat 5. that diminished, or I could go down a step and get a B dominant. So we could sit here but these chords have changed. They've moved. But we're going to play the same E major scale over them, and it's going to give a minor sound to the same 7 notes now, because we're playing it over chords revolving around a minor sounding. Now, that's more of a Phrygian feel. You can do the same thing we did with the Lydian, but now we'll do it with the Phrygian, because we're focusing around this A flat minor chord. We're going to play the A flat minor pentatonic over this progression in order to get like a Phrygian minor sound over this chord progression here. So you get this right here. You get a weird pentatonic Phrygian flavor over that. You know, I mean, it just shows you the way these modes, the pentatonics, and the key and all this stuff all tying together. And you can go through every one of them like this. And you can start out just doing it, looking at how you do it in a minor key, in the 6th mode, because you're doing modal type playing when you do that. Just look at how something written in the key of A minor compares to something written in the key of C major. They're just relative major and minor to each other, and you can see that these same things that I'm explaining here, that's all that's done. That's the way you play in different modes and stuff. It's just like playing in a relative major and minor. So you're probably already doing it. Anyway, that's about the simplest way I can explain kind of piddling around with modes and kind of stepping out of the realm of playing things just in a major key or minor key. It's in a major key. You got to always keep that in mind. You're thinking of it in terms of the key you're in. Only time you don't do that, only time it actually changes is when it shifts into a minor key, which is just a weird kind of way that music has just been done forever, so that's just the way they do it now. All the other modes are thought of in a modal kind of way in a major key. So, anyway.